Elisa and I, we had a magical summer together. We went hiking in Switzerland, which is something that I had wanted to do my entire life. And it probably is the most beautiful place that I have ever seen. I always thought that was Yosemite. That was like top tier. But then you get to Lauterbrunnen, if you've been to Lauterbrunnen, and it looks like Yosemite. You have the 2,000-foot cliffs, and instead of just a few waterfalls, there are 73 waterfalls falling into the valley. And then behind that, there are these rolling grassy hills with cows making music with their bells. And then behind that are the jagged Swiss Alps. It is jaw-dropping. And it's also the home of base jumping. Now, if you have never heard of base jumping, I don't want to call it a sport. It's just an extreme activity where you walk up to the edge of one of those 2,000-foot cliffs and you throw yourself off. And then you fall for 16 seconds until you're just a few hundred feet from the ground and you reach back and you grab your ripcord and you pull it and boom, hopefully, the parachute pulls and you go to the ground. Now, to say that it's dangerous would be an understatement because there are 4 people a year who die in this valley. To the point where actually the Catholic Church in Lauterbrunnen has set up a memorial for them because there were little memorials all over the valley and they wanted it not to be known as the Valley of Death, but a beautiful valley, and here's the memorial for everyone dying jumping off the cliffs. Now, I had always seen these base jumpers on YouTube, but now I was seeing them in 3 dimensions. And so as we stood in the train station one day, I look over and there was this group of men, and yes, it's mostly men who are throwing themselves off the cliff here. And I saw them with all of their gear. Elisa and I, we went up to them and asked them, where could we see you jumping? And they said, listen, go up the valley, and when you see someone jump, you can go up to them and you can ask them, can I follow you up and watch you do the next jump? So we continued on, we did our hike for the day, we got back, we go to the cable car to go back up to where we were staying, and there was the exact man who told us to go up to them to ask them if we could see them jump. So we walk up to this man, and we said, can we watch you jump? And he says, yeah, come with me. It turned out to be an Austrian man. And so we followed him up the cable car, and I got to be in this very intimate conversation with him. Because there's one thing about watching these base jumpers on YouTube, is that it seems to be all about adrenaline, and of course the music influences you, but it's very different to be in a 3-dimensional conversation with this young man. And so the very first question that I had to ask him, which I guess is not surprising, coming from a worried Jewish father who comes from worried Jewish parents, was, do your parents know that you're doing this? And then he explained that, yes, they knew he was doing it, but they couldn't really control him, and they understood it, and they didn't like it, but it's what he does. But then I got to my next question, which I had always wanted to ask. Why? Why do you do this? And at first, there was a silence behind my question. And so then I offered up the most obvious answer. Is it for the adrenaline? Is it for the rush? And it was right there where he cut me off. He said, no, not at all. It's not that. When I approach the cliff, I am really scared. I'm nervous, and then I jump. But the moment that I jump, all my worries, all my fears are gone. It's quiet. I go, so what are you thinking? Nothing. I'm not thinking anything at all. It's finally quiet for 16 seconds. And then I pull my parachute, and I'm back. And it stuck with me. Because I think that's a universal truth among us as humans. Because we're all looking for peace. We're looking for quiet. And for this young man, it turned out that not just him, but all the other jumpers that I spoke to on my trip said the same answer over and again, that it was not about the adrenaline. It wasn't about the rush. It was for the quiet. For them, they hurl themselves off a cliff, dancing on the very edge of death. And it's that intensity that gives them quiet. Just 16 seconds of quiet, but it's quiet. And then bam, the parachute gets pulled, and they're back in the noise. And it made me think about us as a Jewish people, because we do something very similar. Kind of the exact opposite, but very similar. I wouldn't throw myself off a cliff, but work with me here. Because it all begins tomorrow night in the month of Elul. The month of Elul, it's the beginning of that countdown. That's why Rabbi Beth explained that there is no moon starting tomorrow, and we slowly start counting for 40 days, 30 days to Rosh Hashanah, and then 40 days to Yom Kippur. And you probably have heard the rabbis get up here and explain before that Yom Kippur is meant to be that day when you face your own death. It's the dress rehearsal for your death, of us letting go of the cliff that we have been on and hurtling ourselves forward. But what's so different between us is that we're actually not looking for quiet tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're actually looking for noise. Tomorrow, we are going to seek conflict. The conflict we have been avoiding our entire lives. And we're supposed to step straight into the fire. It's this month when we reach out to those in our lives that we have had conflict with, those that we need to heal the relationships with, those that I know I should have called, but I just didn't want to deal with it today or maybe yesterday. But for the next 40 days, we're all going to get pushed in that direction. According to Avi Muschel and Martin Gala of Yeshiva University, they're tales of the tzaddikim who, upon simply hearing the word Elul, that month we're heading into, during this Shabbos, they would begin to faint. That's how intense this month is supposed to be. It's meant to be something that we are afraid of. And the conversations that we're avoiding, it's natural and it's normal. Because if you weren't scared of the conversations, you probably would have already had them. The base jumper, they're not at peace standing on the edge of the cliff. They're actually only at peace when they have fully committed and let go of the security of the firm earth that they know. To think that we're nervous and scared is what it means to leave behind the security of the known, even if that known is a dysfunctional relationship. Because as humans, we like to stick to what we know. It's scary to make change. We don't know where to start sometimes, or even how to start. And it's because of this that the Rambam, he lays out a step-by-step procedure on how we're supposed to approach those conversations, a how-to guide. Just like if you remember ehow.com a while ago, that's what he was trying to do for us. In the Rambam's 10 chapters of Hilchos Tshuva, he lays out a clear 3-step process. He says you need to have regret, you need to have confession, and then you have to leave the sin, committing never to do it again. Now, regret, that's a hard one for us. Because first, we must identify and verbalize what we did wrong, and then say those words, I regret what I did. And this regret, it's meant to be constructive and not destructive. We verbalize and we regret so that it spurs us to new and different action. Confessing something out loud to the person that we've harmed, it makes it real. And committing to never do that sin again. It's a sign of change and growth. Now, regret may sound like we are living in the past, but it's why we immediately follow that into the future. I will never do it again. You see, this is the big difference to where we are looking for peace and quiet. When he jumps off that cliff, he gets a temporary respite for 16 seconds until he's back in the noise. We, conversely, are supposed to use these 40 days to amplify the noise, to seek it out, to engage it, and then to make change. So that when we reach Yom Kippur, when we reach our own precipice, when we pull our own ripcord when we're at that break the fast or we're at Sukkot, It's in the rest of our lives we are searching for quiet in our relationships. It's meant to be that our lives is not just about 16 seconds of quiet, but that we're actually making deep and sustained change where that quiet and that peace is lasting for the rest of the year and into this new section of our lives. My hope for you is that as you sit here on the eve of Elul, and don't faint when I say the word, is that you are intimidated, is that you're scared, and that you're taking this very, very seriously. Because if you aren't scared and you aren't a little bit nervous, you probably aren't looking over the cliff. You're probably not ready to launch yourself from what is known to something which is different, to something which could end up being peaceful. Because it's only when you take it seriously, when you take it seriously enough to realize the magnitude of what lies in front of you. And if we do this right, if we engage, and if we reflect, and if we lay out the foundation for a new future, we create the possibility for peace, which is much greater, which is much quieter than where we stand here today. But that peace, it only comes from actively doing it. I wish you, I wish me, I wish all of us a profound journey that begins tomorrow night. Shabbat Shalom.